That's the end of Foundation Season 2. Did it all go according to the plan? Well, let's find out now. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watch Our Pass, and we made it. It's the end of Foundation Season 2. It is a bittersweet feeling for me because I thought that the ending was good. It answered a lot of questions. It definitely kind of wrapped up some of these storylines, but this also means that this is the end of Season 2, and Season 2 was getting very, very good. The last few episodes were fantastic. This episode was really good. My hot take is, look, I think you should definitely watch it. It is a very good but not great conclusion to this amazing season. It answers some questions. It ties up some of the storylines. There are some big moments. There are some deaths. But the ending, I think, left a little bit to be desired. So I definitely think you should still watch it. And if you haven't seen Foundation Season 2, it is really good. It definitely kind of started slow for me, but as the season went on, it ramped up, and wow, it was really, really good the last few episodes. So overall, I think Foundation Season 2 is a good season. Apparently it departs from the books. I never read the books, so I didn't notice it. I liked some of the things that happened. I really liked the last few episodes, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So overall, I think it answered the call. It moved the storyline along. It introduced some new factions. It introduced some more aspects of Harry's plan, and it leaves the door open for a season 3 of Foundation. So I'm going to tell you a little about the episode, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then quickly go into a recap. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the recap section. If you don't know what happens in this episode, I would turn it off when I get to the recap. Before that, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free. I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So Foundation Season 2, Episode 10 kicks off right after the big, impactful ending of Foundation Season 2, Episode 9. Remember when Harry Seldon, WWE style, like came out of the tunnel, entered the ring, and just beat the heck out of Tellum. He was alive. We thought he was dead. He saved Gaal and Salvor. That was a big moment in this season because his death was a big moment and his magical resurrection was a big moment. Well, the beginning of Season 2, Episode 10 answers this question of how that happened and then goes into more of the various plots that are happening that were all swirling around at the end of Foundation Season 2. It moves along the Foundation Empire War. It moves along some of the disruption that was happening on Trantor, and it answers a little bit more on Ignis. So it definitely ties up some of these loose ends. And like I said, it does leave us with some new questions, which I will get into in the recap section. Before that, things I liked about this episode. The first, I really like the opening. It is a very impactful opening. It answers a lot of the questions that we've had so far. It does what a lot of shows I like don't do. It kind of hits the big moments in the last episode and gives you satisfying answers to all of them before moving on. So I really love the opening. Episode 9 left me with so many questions. The Episode 10 really did a good job of kind of answering those front and center. The second thing I love, look, I love the writing. There are some really good lines in here that kind of draw you in while answering some of these questions. I really love some of the way that they kind of phrase things. There was definitely a line that Demerzel used that I loved. It was really, such a great symbolism for kind of what was happening at the time. And overall, I just thought the writing was really strong, and you kind of need it to be when they're answering a lot of these questions and giving you kind of some big, impactful, emotional moments. It really helps when the writing just feels solid throughout. The third thing I love, look, I love the music. It kind of all feeds into these big moments at the opening. It had some great music during this emotional opening. There was some foreboding music when you thought something bad was happening. There was some beautiful music when some other big moments were happening. And overall, as with most of the season, the music definitely contributed to kind of the emotions you are feeling as you are going through these big moments. And, well, I keep saying, look, my last review had impactful throughout. This is going to have emotion. The fourth thing I love the emotion. There were some very big moments in this episode, some very big choices, some very big consequences that happened, as you expect in a season finale. And it definitely kind of tugged at your heartstrings, definitely kind of upped the emotion through everything, like through the writing, through the music, through some of the big choices that we had. But overall, I just had all the feels at the start of this episode. So all that being said, things I didn't love as much, I just didn't love the ending. The last about 10 minutes, it just felt, I don't know, kind of like a cop-out. Like some aspects of it did make sense, but some of it kind of didn't. And I'm going to go into that in the recap. I'm not going to go into it right now because it's spoiler-free, but just know I just didn't love the way that this ended. Look, it kind of leaves open the door for a Foundation Season 3, which I'm happy about. But the way that they got there, it didn't feel as satisfying as I was hoping. So, and the second thing I didn't love, it was a little shorter than I wanted it to be. This is the Season 2 finale, and it's only about 54 minutes long. Now, I don't think it left really any questions unanswered, so I can't really fault it for that. But I just wanted more. This is the last episode we get of Foundation Season 2 before a long hiatus until season 3. I wanted a little bit more time with the characters. I wanted, to see a little bit more of the world. I just wanted more time with everyone, and I'm a little sad that it's only 54 minutes long. Again, it's a minor complaint, but when I saw the runtime for this, I was like, oh, I was hoping for like an hour and a half. I was hoping to spend a lot more time with these characters, and we didn't get that. So, all that being said, Foundation Season 2, Episode 10 comes to Apple TV Plus on September 15th, 2023. Definitely check it out. Look, if you've gotten this far, you know that you're going to watch it. You know you're going to probably stay up and watch it because you want these answers, and it definitely gives them to you. And if you haven't seen this season of Foundation, hurry up, get caught up. It is really good, and you're definitely going to want to be caught up when the inevitable season 3 happens sometime in the future. So that being said, I'm going to go into a recap right now. If you don't know what happens in this episode, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So, like I said, this episode starts with an answer to one of the big questions, like how did Harry magically jump out WWE style, beat Tellum down? How did he survive? Well, you get that answer at the start. You find out that when Harry was, in that tub, in that vat, when he was drowning, he kind of reached out. Him and Gaal connected psychically, I guess, mentalically. We'll go mentalically because that's their name. And Gaal was able to kind of feel his pain and use her powers to then plant a suggestion into the guard that was there, the guard that was watching Harry. She planted a suggestion to him to save Harry. And so the guard goes and saves Harry as he's about to drown. And then Gaal, I can't tell if she is like fueling Harry on or at least feeling what he's doing, but they kind of go back and forth between like Harry in this situation and then Gaal kind of personifying Harry, doing the things that he's doing, either like controlling him or at least feeling what he's doing. But anyway, Gaal / Harry then reward this guard who saved Harry's life. He was nudged, but he saved Harry's life by killing him, by strangling him with the chain that Harry was being bound with, and leaving him in the pool. And you're like, okay, that's really harsh. Like, why would you do that? Well, there is a reason. Gaal then used that guard and kind of like put an illusion on that guard to make it look like Harry's body. And she was so powerful at this point that she made it so that everyone on Ignis saw it, or at least everyone that like went to see Harry saw it. So that's why when Salvor went to the pit and saw Harry's body there and she ran in and she hugged him, like, crying before she was thrown into her own cell, that's why it worked. That's why it was so real, because there was a body there and Gaal was just like using her mental powers to make everyone think it was Harry. So after we get this explanation, we find out the other Mentalics are coming. They come to the beggar and they basically just say, like, you can come out now, there's no danger. And they appear, they look like they're kind of waking up from a daze. It seems like when Tellum was there, she kind of had everyone under her control. She was so powerful that she had all the Mentalics under her control in some way. And so they almost didn't have free will. So now that Tellum is gone and they know that she's gone, they're now able to kind of think for themselves, and they seem more peaceful. They seem kind of ready to move on. They seem ready to make like Gaal and Salvor and Harry their new kind of supreme leaders, whatever you want to call them, of this new foundation. And that is kind of like how this base of foundation gets set. You can see that all these Mentalics are now going to follow Gaal, doing whatever she wants, and that is kind of how this foundation of Foundation 2 gets started. So back on Trantor, we have Rue and Dusk. They are talking to Demerzel after they found her like secret chamber where she used to be trapped and then kind of stayed around after Cleon freed her. And this is a really interesting scene because, like I said, there's a ton of emotion. Demerzel is clearly torn. Like, she is programmed to protect the Empire, to protect the genetic dynasty. And now Brother Dusk and Rue are a kind of risk to that. And so she explains to them, like, essentially that she is kind of a prisoner in her own right. She is like a prisoner to this programming, prisoner to like preserve this dynasty that also keeps her entrenched. And that all of this is because like Cleon essentially rewrote her, and yet she still loves Cleon, the original Cleon, the one that like came and freed her. She still loves him, even though that he like rewrote her to kind of make her this new prisoner, kind of beholden to his line, to preserving his genetic dynasty. And there was a really great line here. This is one of the like lines that kind of stood out to me. Brother Dusk asks her, like, how can you love him when he did this to you? And Demerzel responds, like, she loved all of him. He wasn't dawn or day or dusk. He wasn't like one of them. He was the whole journey across the sky, which I thought was a fantastic line. I really loved that, she loved Cleon because she saw him throughout his life and fell in love with him as she was seeing him throughout his life. But She also says that her programming requires her to preserve the dynasty, and that's when we find out through some conversations with Brother Dusk. And Brother Dusk really shines in this one. I liked Brother Dusk a lot in these last few episodes. He definitely took a more active role in these last few episodes, and through some conversation with Dusk and Demerzel, we find out that Demerzel is the one that actually hired the Blind Angels to attack Day. Not to kill him, but she wanted that incident to happen, and then she changed Queen Sareth's banking records and implanted the memory in there to make it look like Queen Sareth hired the Blind Angel. So that would eventually ruin the wedding and kind of preserve the genetic dynasty. Demerzel was using all these underhanded means to preserve the genetic dynasty. Now, in my predictions, I thought she was doing this to kind of like backhandedly end the genetic dynasty. Like she didn't hire the Blind Angels. Maybe she like suggested someone do it, and that would like allow the dynasty to fall, and then she wouldn't be a prisoner anymore. But no, she is doing all of these things to try to preserve the genetic dynasty because her programming is forcing her to do it. So after all this, Dusk approaches Demerzel and kind of hugs her in a weird way. He like puts his hands around her throat, and you're like, maybe he's gonna attack her, but no. He cradles her head and says, he forgives her, and kind of, comes to the realization that none of them were ever free. Like they were all kind of prisoners of this thing that Cleon the First set up. And after this, Dusk retreats back to Rue. They hug. The music becomes a little more ominous. Demerzel approaches them as she's like crying, but she approaches them. You don't see what happens, but you are pretty certain what happens. The next thing you see is Demerzel leaving the cell. You don't see Dusk. You don't see Rue. She just leaves the cell and kind of keeps moving on. So back on Terminus, in the aftermath of the destruction of Terminus, Brother Day wants to kind of have a complete victory for the Empire. So he basically orders the fleet to jump to the other Foundation planets. The other planets the Foundation has kind of won over and joined in their alliance against the Empire. He wants to jump to each of them and destroy them. He orders Bell to do this, and Bell says no. Like he said that he took out Terminus in a hope to kind of like end the future genocide, like end future mass death and future genocide. But because Brother Day is insistent on like a complete victory of wiping out anyone that might be against the Empire, Bell's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So Brother Day orders the spacer on Bell's ship to do that anyways, to jump to the next planet, which is Thespis, to go and take that out. The spacer, kind of complies. He's like saying the course. And then you have a bunch of explosions happening on the edge of the blockade. Like a bunch of the ships on the edge start blowing up. And you realize that the ships are jumping into each other. They're doing very small jumps into the space occupied by the next ship. So basically, they are just kind of blowing each other up. And the jump route's already set for the entire fleet. So it's just an inevitability until they get down to the capital ship, and the ship that has Bell and the ship that has Brother Day, they all are going to explode. And so Day's like, what are you doing? Like, why would you just, like, you're going to kill your own spacers by doing this? And She Bends Light looks at Brother Day and says, it's a small price to pay for our freedom. And then we find out that Harry Seldon has been playing like 4D chess this entire time. You find out that the whole Hober Mallow coming to the Shining Destiny in shackles was all a ruse, that the spacers had already joined the Foundation side, that when Hober came to them, Harry also sent like a master negotiator with the materials that the spacers would need. So they already decided to join Foundation, already decided to get their independence, but they needed to get some information from the kind of spacer fleet to the Shining Destiny. And so they embedded this jump sequence, this like death jump sequence into Hober's arm and sent him to the Shining Destiny so that She Bends Light could, reference that thing on Hober's arm and use that when they were doing the jump. I don't know why they just didn't send like an email or something. And the Swarm Mind can definitely communicate with She Bends Light. She did that earlier when she requested an audience with her mother. I don't know why they just didn't do that. I don't know why they had to send Hober in on a death mission with like an embedded chip, but it makes for a fun kind of surprise. But part of this was also to bait Brother Day out into Terminus. And so the betrayal of the spacers, the kind of Foundation building a fleet getting ready for war, was all kind of a ruse to get Brother Day and the entire Empire fleet out to Terminus to then destroy Terminus, or at least kind of set themselves up for this war. And so that was all a plan to get them out here. And now that they're out here, this jump sequence is happening. The Empire ships are slowly blowing up. And because the jump sequence is there, all the escape pods are locked down. The ships have to kind of go into lockdown So no one can escape. Everyone's going to die. But in doing that, the spacers will be free. Brother Day will be gone. And there'll be a big message sent to like the rest of the galaxy. Brother Day is none too happy about this. So he starts fighting Hober. And Hober, does something, but he is not really a fighter. But luckily for him, Riose tags in and they start fighting. And Bell and Brother Day have a pretty intense fight. At one point, Brother Day like spits blood in Bell's face, which I don't know, that seems unsanitary. But I guess if you're the Emperor, you probably don't have to worry about any diseases. I bet the nanobots clean all that stuff up anyways. But they have a pretty bloody fight. And this was interesting because like Brother Day seems to be relishing in this. He seems to be relishing in anything that in any sort of like pain he feels. Every time he gets hit, no matter how bloody he gets, he seems to be smiling, which is weird because this is a big change from the Brother Day like 2 episodes ago, who got bitten by Becky and was screaming in pain because it was like the first time he felt pain. And then when he was being attacked by the blind angels at the start of the episode, he felt a bunch of fear in like his mortality because his R was down during that. I don't know if this is just like a weird plot thing or if this is like supposed to show that Brother Day has completely kind of gone over the edge and is now just kind of like so full of himself, so like thirsty for revenge that he just doesn't care, that he is like relishing in this fight. I think that's what it is. It just is weird that he like has changed so much from a few episodes ago where he like screamed in pain at his own mortality. But in any event, they fight, they bloody each other up a lot, but eventually Brother Day, kind of being the younger, more physically able specimen, gets Riose into the airlock, and he jettisons the airlock. You're like, oh man, this is it. But when the airlock opens, it's Brother Day in the airlock, and Riose is in the ship. And you're like, what happened? Was there like some sort of face obfuscation thing? Was there something? No. It's that switcheroo device that Hober's always had. It's that no. It's that switcheroo device that Hober uses. So while Bell was fighting Day earlier, he slipped one piece of that switcheroo device in Day's robes, and then when he was in the airlock, he activated the piece that he had and caused him to switch. So Day gets jettisoned into space. He slowly dies, and Bell is safe. Well, kind of safe because they're in the ship that's about to blow up. But Bell has a plan to save one person. And so out of all the people on the ship, everyone that they could possibly save, they decide to use it on either Hober or Brother Constant. And Hober decides to give it to Brother Constant because even though he like was part of this plan to get Empire to blow up, his part is done. And he thinks that Brother Constant has a bigger part to play in the future, that she is kind of someone that can help to be like a light in the darkness. She is someone that kind of like helped him find his faith in Harry Seldon and the plan. And so he thinks that going forward, she is going to be the much more useful person for the future of Foundation, for the future of Seldonism, for the future of the universe, essentially. So they put her in this cleaning pod. This pod, I don't know, I guess it kind of goes out, maybe cleans the ship. I don't really know what it does. It seems to kind of jettison out of the ship very, very quickly. But they put her into this. She has about a day of oxygen left, and they whoosh, push her out. It like fires out like a gun. The cleaning pod goes out into the distance, and Riose and Hober are left to drink that wine that Hober was going to drink with Brother Constant after they consummated the relationship, but they were captured. Well, now Bell and Hober finally crack open this wine. They take some sips. They comment on how complex it is before they finally both admit that it's pretty terrible, that it seems to maybe have turned in the thousands of years it was fermenting. So they have a good laugh about this. They try to distract themselves, and then the ship blows up. So down on Trantor, we find out that Demerzel's prediction is coming true. Queen Sareth is arrested for her plot in the Blind Angel's assassination, and she is getting led away when Brother Dawn comes out and asks, like, what's going on? And Demerzel talks to him and explains what happened. And during this time, Dawn notices that there's a green mark on Demerzel's neck. And he thinks back to when he was spending time with Brother Dusk, because remember, Dawn and Dusk got very, very close in these last few episodes. And Brother Dusk was telling him about the various tapestries, the various kind of murals that are in the palace. And one of the kind of betrayer emperors had a green mark added to his neck. And that was, I guess, the mark of the betrayer. So he notices on Demerzel's neck that there is a green mark on there. It looks like Brother Dusk was thinking like 2 moves ahead. He had some of that green pigment on his fingers when he went up to kind of cradle Demerzel's head. And it looked weird when he was doing it. You're like, what is going on? Well, he was marking her neck with a green mark. So that when Brother Don saw her, he realized that she was a traitor, that she was like not to be trusted. And Brother Don decides to make some plans to try to get everyone out of here. So later, Don decides to go full-on commando and break Sareth out of her cell. He goes in, he stabs one of the guards. The other guard like tries to fight him, which is weird. You wouldn't think that the guard would raise a hand against Brother Don, who is Empire, who is, by all intents and purposes, Empire in this world. He does, but luckily for him, Sareth grabs a knife that Brother Don dropped and stabs that guard. So both of the guards are dead. Don and Sareth decide to run away. But wait, they're up on a screen talking to the people, kind of talking about how at this point, Brother Don knew that Brother Day was dead. The news about Brother Day's demise had come down to at least the leadership of Empire. And so he talks about how his brother's dead and now he is going to take over the throne and marry Queen Sarah. So it seems like maybe their plan is going perfectly. Well, Demerzel doesn't like this. She sees this broadcast, wants it to be stopped, tells them to be arrested. But what do they get? They only get Queen Sarah's servants. Queen Sarah's servants were using the obfuscation devices that Don and Sareth used when they met up in the secret tunnels. Well, they were using those to pretend to be Don and Sareth. So we don't know where Don and Sareth are, but they are not there. They're not getting arrested. And that's when Don calls Demerzel and basically like tells her, you can't kill me. If you kill me, people will lose faith in Empire. And he kind of implores Demerzel to let them find their happiness. Like he says that Demerzel is the closest thing to a mother he's had, the closest thing to family he's had. He thinks that when she was taking care of him, there was some emotion there was some love there, and he hopes that, some of it was programmed, but he hopes that some of it was real. And so both he and Sareth kind of plead with Demerzel to let them live their lives, let them kind of birth this child and just essentially be their own people. Now, I don't think it would work out that way. Look, this is one of the most famous faces in the galaxy. I don't think he could hide, but they at least kind of try to make their case to let them kind of go and live their lives. And as they're doing this, they are taking off in a ship. You don't know where they're going. My guess is Cloud Dominion. That would seem to be the safest place. So maybe they are going to go live in Cloud Dominion and see what happens. So in response to Dusk being killed by Demerzel, Day being killed by Riose, and Dawn kind of fleeing with Queen Sareth, Demerzel goes back to the plan. She defrosts a new Dawn, Day, and Dusk and tells them, like, this is unprecedented. I've never had to defrost 3 of you. But she says that everything should be fine because she has recently acquired a new toy, and she pulls out the Prime Radiant, which is weird because someone else in this episode had the Prime Radiant also. So it seems like the Prime Radiant can be in multiple places at once. Maybe it is like a fully quantum device that can be in multiple places at once. I don't really understand, but Demerzel now has the Prime Radiant. Now remember, this is the Prime Radiant that Harry in the vault gave to Demerzel when Demerzel and Brother Day visited Harry when he was in the vault before Terminus was destroyed. So maybe there's still a time thing here. It seemed like Gaal, Harry, and Salvor were existing in a future. So maybe Demerzel has the Prime Radiant in this timeline, but everything is kind of traveling concurrently. But it seems like maybe Gaal, Salvor, and Harry are in the future. I'm not certain, but there appear to be 2 pieces of the Prime Radiant, 2 versions of the Prime Radiant, 2 kind of instances of it, 2 parts of the same whole. And Demerzel has the Prime Radiant. And so she activates the Prime Radiant. It opens up, and the new Day, Dawn, and Dusk kind of look at her and say, do you understand what's happening? And she's like, not all of it, but I will. Not all of it, but I will. And I can already see that there are wonderful things ahead. So it seems like Demerzel is going to continue with her plan with a new powerful device that will maybe help her map out the future of Empire. Now, over in space, remember Brother Constant was shot out of the Shining Destiny before it blew up? Well, her oxygen's getting a little low. It seems like this is not going great for her. But then, all of a sudden, in the darkness, there is the Vault. The Vault from Terminus is in space. It apparently can fly. It apparently can survive in space. It appears to be super magic, and a path of light, a door of light opens in the vault, and in goes Brother Constant. In the vault, she sees Harry in the vault, the kind of the I don't know, like the baseline Harry. he is there, and he basically says like Terminus will always be destroyed so that Foundation can survive. And that is when Brother Constant sees people from Foundation, people from Terminus come out of the like darkness into the light. And she sees Glaywin, who we all thought was dead. She sees her father, who she embraces. We look up and we see many people, so many people, more people than I thought were on Foundation. Apparently they all were able to get to the vault somehow, including Glaywin, who just like kind of crash landed on Terminus before it blew up. They're all able to get there. Glaywin seems to maybe realize that Bell is dead at this point. He looks around and he looks a little bit sad, but overall, we find out that all of Foundation, I guess, survived in the vault, which I didn't love. Like, I liked the idea of the vault, I guess, being this magical spaceship that can go up into space, but like, how did they possibly all get into the vault, including like Glaywin, who was just there, Polyverisov, who was, I guess Polyverisov was close to the vault, so he could have come in quickly. Brother Constant's dad, who was like dying from being stabbed, is magically in there. Like, how did they get them all into the vault? That thing would have to like suck everyone up like a Hoover and just instantly transport them all in there right before Terminus exploded, because you saw they were all kind of looking up as the Invictus was like hurtling towards Terminus. I don't know how quickly they move, but they must move really quickly. I guess maybe the vault can move super quick. I don't really know. It seems a little odd, or maybe, I don't know, maybe just like how Harry is in the vault as a copy of their consciousness, maybe the consciousness of like everyone in Foundation was copied into the vault, and so they are surviving that way. They are surviving in this like digital version, not their actual bodies, but their kind of like consciousnesses are now living in the vault. You don't know. We don't get that information. All we know is that it seems like everyone basically survived from the destruction of Terminus, which kind of blunts the destruction of Terminus and feels like kind of a cop-out. So it seems like the vault has now become, I don't know, like Silo. Maybe there will be a like cross event between Foundation and Silo, because the vault is now essentially what Silo was. That would be cool. I love them both. It'd be fun to see them combined. But I assume we will get some answers at some point in the future, but we'll have to wait for season 3 for that to happen. So that takes care of pretty much everywhere but Ignis. So let's go back to Ignis, where Gaal, Salvor, and Harry are kind of celebrating with the Mentalics now that they are kind of free. And while Gaal is going around talking to people, Jazar, the little boy, kind of says that she wants to tell Gaal something. And Gale's like, okay, but she goes on to talk to someone else. And that is when the little boy seems to change, become a little more serious. He goes over and grabs a gun, and he points the gun at Gaal, and he says, "I'm sorry, child," in the similar way that Tellum did before she would do something horrible. Salvor sees this. She gets up, she runs, she jumps in front of the gun before it goes off, and throws a knife at Jazar. The gun hits Salvor. Jazar gets hit with a knife. He collapses. They both collapse. Salvor starts bleeding out. Jazar explains that like Tellum's last act was to kind of reach out and get into his consciousness. She was weak, but she was, able enough to control him, to force him to do this. And now that he's dying, he feels that she is dying too. So this seems like this was Tellum's last act, her last kind of like grasp at anything. And it was just revenge, right? Like she wasn't powerful enough to go into anyone else, so she just wanted to get revenge. That didn't work out. She didn't kill Gaal, but she seems like she might have killed Salvor. Now Salvor is bleeding out. Gale's holding her, and Salvor says this wonderful line. She says like, she calls Gaal mom, which was one of the few times she's done it. She says, "Mom, don't you see what this means? This means we're not trapped. This means that the future can be changed." And she says, "You can still get it back on the right course." So remember, Gale's vision was that Salvor died 150 years in the future. Well, unfortunately, I guess, or fortunately for her, that didn't happen, because Salvor is dying right now in the present. So bittersweet, because Salvor is dying, but it does show that the things that Gaal sees are not like set in stone. The future can be changed. So Gaal like makes it her mission to do it. The next time we see her, she is looking at the Prime Radiant. She's trying to figure out to see if Salvor's death nudges the path into anything more concrete. And she is talking to Harry, and they have a very sweet scene. Like, Harry is basically kind of finally acting as the dad that Gaal always kind of wanted him to, and that he was at the start of their relationship, and then kind of fade away when Raish had to die. But now it seems like Gary and Harry's relationship is mended. He is kind of treating her more like a child, like more like his own child. He's giving her advice. He's like much more caring. And Gale's like essentially crying. She's like, Salvor's death had to mean something. Like, tell me it meant something. And Harry's like, we can't know like the consequences of a present event until it happens. But he basically says like, you have to give Salvor's death some meaning. Like if Salvor died, you have to use that to fuel it to move forward. Like Harry uses Yanna's death to kind of push him to continue the plan, to keep pushing forward. He uses that as motivation to kind of do what he needs to do. And he tells Gaal to do the same thing with Salvor's death. Gaal tells Harry like, tell me the plan will still work. And Harry has this sweet line. He says, the plan will still work, an infinite number of ways to arrive at the inevitable. So he basically says like, even if some of these things change, like the plan will still continue forward. And so that again means that Salvor's death had some meaning because it means that the plan is still moving forward. So after this, Gaal asks Harry, like, what's next? And Harry basically says, like, we have to get you to go face the mule. Like, we have to get you 150 years in the future. And Harry's plan is like, Gaal will basically just be like a figurehead. Like they'll freeze her in the cryo cell. She'll come out every year to kind of encourage the Mentalics. Harry will stay behind. He'll train the Mentalics. He'll train them to like hone their mental skills, but also train them in psychohistory. And then by the time that Gaal is there to face the mule, the Mentalics will also be ready. They'll have like trained up, and she'll have essentially a Mentalics army. Now, Gale's not too happy about this because she's like, basically what? Like, so I'm going to just trot out every year for 150 years and kind of watch you die and watch everyone die. Like, no, that's not okay. Like, I just lost Salvor. I'm not going to lose the only family I have left. So Gaal convinces Harry, like, if they train them together, they can progress them even faster. And so rather than have 150 years to train them up, she says, let's just do 1 year, which is a lot faster, to be fair, but I don't know if that's enough time to really get the Mentalics ready. But Gale's suggestion is, let's give them 1 year, and then we can both cryo freeze, because when this crazy future happens, I'm going to need some advice, and I'm going to need you, Harry. She says, like, when the future happens, she doesn't want to face it without the only family she has left. So the next thing we see the Mentalics bringing the cryopods out. They set them up in, like, Tellum's throne room, side by side. I guess it's been a year. You don't get any sort of, like, time lapse to show it's been a year, but I guess it had been a year. And in go Gaal, in go Harry. The cryopods close. The liquid comes on up. Gaal kind of talks Harry through this because Gale's done this before. Remember when she first got in the cryopod, Raish talked her through that one. Now she's talking to Harry, talking through the process. The cryopod fills up. Gaal and Harry kind of freeze, and we see the Mentalics look at them, bow down, and we see that, like, Neck Tattoo Girl is their new leader. So it seems like Neck Tattoo Girl is the new leader of the Mentalics, in the absence of Gaal and Harry, who are preserving themselves for a future battle with the mule. Well, and the weird irony in this is that Gaal at first said that she didn't want to become a god to the Mentalics, but as she goes into cryosleep, all the Mentalics bow down to her, so she kind of has become a god. She kind of replaced Tellum. Hopefully she will be a benevolent god and not a Tellum evil god, but I guess we'll find out in 150 years. Speaking of 150 years, 152 years later, we see the mule. And again, the mule is not that scary to me. I really hope that they do something better for season 3, because we get a brief scene with the mule. He doesn't look that scary. He just basically says, he's like talking to himself, and he says, like, I saw her again. She visited me in 1,000 dreams, and now she's here. I have to get Gaal Dornick. I have to stop her. Even if I have to burn everything to the ground, I have to stop Gaal. So it's interesting because, like, it seems like Gaal has driven the mule to do what he is about to do. Like, the thing that she feared, Gaal has driven the mule to do it. Now, maybe the mule would have done this anyway. Maybe the mule would have always been, like, sadistic. But in his mind, Gaal has been, like, trying to take him out, and now because she's trying to take him out, he has to destroy everything else to prevent that, and also to get her first. So it seems like Gaal and the mule are on a crash course for season 3, but we don't know what happens, because that is the end of season 2. That is the end of Foundation season 2. So what can we expect? Well, it seems like I said, Gaal and the mule are on a crash course to have a big conflict. I assume season 3, we will see the Mentalics in Foundation 2, and Gaal get ready to fight the mule. But remember, we also have Foundation 1 flying around the vault. Are they a group of soldiers? Are they like consciousness copies that are going to help to give Gaal additional backing? We don't know, but we also have Foundation 1. They can help. Maybe they are going to go to the various worlds and recruit people to help fight the mule. Maybe that's what their role is going to be. I don't know. And we also have Empire back. Empire respawned. They're all back. And now Demerzel has the prime radiant. Now, is she going to learn how to use it? She probably will. She's pretty smart. But I don't know. Maybe one of the Cleons is going to learn how to use the prime radiant and start learning how to kind of interpret this. And maybe that's going to change their fate over there. We don't know. And we also have a hereditary dynasty forming because we've got Queen Sareth and Brother Dawn with a child. I assume Brother Dawn is no longer going to be in the picture because it's 150 years later, but their heir might be, and maybe that will be another kind of wrinkle in this whole Foundation season 3 that I assume is going to happen at some point. All those things can play out. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but it seems like there will be a big conflict between the Mule and presumably several other factions. But we'll have to wait to find out. That is Foundation Season 2. Like I said, I think you should watch it. It is a good season. It's not a great ending, but it is a very good ending that sets up what we need for Season 3 and answers a lot of the questions that we had throughout Season 2. So definitely check it out. And let me know your thoughts. Let me know what I got right. Let me know what I got wrong. Let me know what you think is going to happen in Season 3. I'd love to hear it all. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.